Harry received a text from Troy, informing him that he had done the deed. "Rebecca, did you call the reporters?" "Yes, they're on standby." Harry eagerly rushed to the Grand Hotel to get rid of Kim.
"Vanessa, what are you talking about?" Amy asked with a sigh. "Our family issues are messy enough as it is. My brother-in-law loves to boast. It's nothing new." "I'm defending him for a reason. Listen to me." Just as Vanessa was about to explain everything to Amy, Stephen took a key card and gave it to Kim. Her name was displayed across the front, along with the eye-catching words, Riverview Villa. Even though Vanessa had signed the contract, Stephen was still the real owner. It wasn't hard for him to get the real estate company to make a personalized key card for Kim. Kim was pleasantly surprised, but she was also a little doubtful. "I heard this house costs $30 million. Not even Mom's family can afford it. Where did all this money come from?" Jonathan refused to believe it. "That's impossible. Forget about buying it. Even if he wanted to rent it, he still wouldn't have enough." Riverview Villa was simply too expensive. It was meant to be out of reach and gazed upon from a distance, never to be sold. With Jonathan's family's background in Santa Ana, it was an easy task to find out who purchased the villa. After making a few calls, Jonathan got his answer. "To think I was almost fooled by your eloquent words. For a minute, I really thought you bought the villa." "What do you mean?" Linda's husband asked. "I just asked around. Stephen didn't buy Riverview Villa. Want to take a guess as to who the real owner is?" Everyone exchanged confused glances. Jonathan pointed at Vanessa and smiled. "She's the owner. 3 days ago, Miss Vanessa dropped $30 million and bought the villa. She even swiped her card on the spot." He looked at Vanessa with a burning gaze. Rather than Kim, she was the real catch. Amy turned to Vanessa in disbelief. "So you're the one who bought it. I didn't know you were that rich to spend $30 million in one go. If it weren't for Mr. Jonathan, I don't know when I would have found out. How long were you planning to hide this from me?" Vanessa was at a loss. The situation had taken a wild turn, and she had no idea how to clarify the misunderstanding. She really wanted to tell Amy that she came from an ordinary family and that she wasn't insanely rich. It was Stephen who'd paid the $30 million. Linda's husband was beginning to understand. "That has to be it. Stephen found out that Vanessa's from a rich family. So after she purchased the villa, he tried to take credit for it by shamelessly asking her to rent it out to him at a low price. Vanessa probably couldn't refuse because he's Amy's brother-in-law." His words were enough to convince everyone in the restaurant. Kim stepped forward to salvage Stephen's reputation. "It's the thought that counts. I'm satisfied with Stephen's gifts. It doesn't matter whether it was him or Vanessa who bought the villa." Vanessa had no choice but to go along with the misunderstanding because she couldn't reveal Stephen's identity. "I'm glad you see it that way. Stephen really cares about you. He knew that you would come back to Santa Ana often for work, and it would be inconvenient to stay at your mom's parents' house every time. That's why he asked me to rent out the house so that you could have a comfortable stay whenever you come." "Thank you, Vanessa. You're very kind. I appreciate it. I promise I'll take good care of your house. Also, please be generous when charging Stephen for rent." Vanessa glanced at Stephen. "Oh, you won't have to worry about that. He can definitely afford it." Afterwards, everyone enjoyed a delicious meal at the restaurant. Jonathan's attitude had taken a 180-degree turn. He started treating Kim coldly and shifted his focus to Vanessa. In his eyes, the only thing Kim had going for her was her beauty and a family who couldn't match up to the Bellows family. But Vanessa was both pretty and extremely rich. She was the perfect partner. It was all too obvious that Vanessa was avoiding Jonathan's advances, but he didn't care. He was thick-skinned and kept trying to get close to her. Kim was satisfied with everything that Stephen had prepared for her birthday. On the other hand, Linda and her husband's moods couldn't be any different. Watching Jonathan pursue Vanessa, they knew immediately that their plan to get Kim to divorce Stephen and marry Jonathan had failed. When Linda and her husband went home, They were surrounded and bombarded with questions. Linda's husband gritted his teeth. The blind date failed. I don't know what kind of luck Stephen has. He met someone from a rich family as soon as he stepped out of the house. Jonathan's taken an interest in her, and he doesn't care about Kim anymore.
Kim has only recently become the vice president, but she's already gaining authority, Gordon said. Stephen gave her a nice house of her own and even celebrated her birthday at Cloud Walk Restaurant. If we let this continue, what will happen to us?
We can't let them keep acting like this, Mavis agreed. It won't be long before Natalie and her family kick us to the curb. We have to think of a way to stop them. A thought crossed Kelly's husband's mind. I have an idea, but I'm not sure if you'll agree. It might be going overboard. Mavis was impatient. If you have any ideas, just spit them out. Why are you being so reserved at a time like this? We need to take care of this as soon as possible. It doesn't matter how far we have to go. Kelly's husband put out a cigarette. All right, it's like this. Kim was Hanes Industries' representative. She won the competition at the Eastern Sea Group's event and was chosen to be their business partner. I don't know what strings she pulled to come out on top, but none of us have any part of it. Gordon waved his hand.
We all know that. Get to the point.
Kim will have to stay in Santa Ana to oversee the construction of the 5-star hotel. As for us, we can't just sit by and watch her reap the benefits. So, Kelly's husband lowered his voice. Why don't we hire someone to destroy the construction site? Think about it. It takes money to build a hotel, and construction workers have to be hired. We can use this to our advantage. Once rumors are spread and the project gets a bad rep, do you think Mr. Stein or Mr. Pollard will continue to trust Kim with this hotel? Linda's husband clapped his hands.
That's not a bad idea. Why didn't I think of that?
Because you work in the government. You wouldn't pull tricks like these, Kelly's husband said, grinning widely.
But we can't do this ourselves,
Megan's husband pointed out. Of course not. We'll be exposed right from the start. That's why we need outside help. I asked a man named Sergio for assistance. Gianna's husband recognized the name.
Are you talking about Sergio from the underworld?
Yes, he's well known in Santa Ana. His group is rowdy, and they can kill without batting an eye. Even the police can't get them under control. With their help, the construction of the hotel won't go smoothly. But there's one problem. They're asking for quite a bit of money. Kelly and I don't have enough, so we would like to ask all of you to chip in. If we manage to kick Kim and Stephen out of the Hanes family, we'll have Hanes Industries to ourselves. The rest of them weren't thrilled that they had to spend money, but when they thought about Natalie's family and how they didn't deserve a position in the company, they gritted their teeth and gathered the money. Then they waited for Sergio to make his move. After becoming the vice president of Hanes Industries, Kim's main focus was on the construction of the 5-star hotel. The city considered this an important project, and the estimated time to completion wasn't that far off. Kim would have to stay in Santa Ana for the duration of the project and personally oversee the construction. Kim was thankful for the Riverview villa. After moving in, she no longer had to deal with the contemptuous glances and remarks from the Hanes family. It was much more peaceful without them around. After a few more days of vacationing in Santa Ana, Amy and Vanessa packed their bags and returned to school. Kim busied herself with the hotel's construction, while Stephen prepared meals and did laundry as usual. As the days passed, Natalie became even more dissatisfied with Stephen. If Kim and Jonathan had worked out, she would have had an assistant to help her with her work, and she wouldn't be so tired all the time. Today was like any other day. Kim was working at home, while Stephen was getting ready to go out. After he left the house to buy groceries, Kim received a call from the manager of the construction site.
Miss Kim, something happened at the site. Please come over as soon as you can.
Kim had a bad feeling about this. She grabbed her handbag and hailed a cab to the construction site. When she arrived, there was a group of people surrounding the site. They were holding what appeared to be tools, and they gave off a menacing aura. "What's going on?" Kim asked the manager. Before he could respond, a brawny man noticed them and went over. Up close, Kim could see a tattoo on his chest peeking out of his shirt. The man looked down at her. "Are you the one in charge? Look, we were hired to demolish whatever was here so that your company, Haynes Industries, could build a hotel. We did our job, but we haven't received compensation for our work. If you don't hand it over by today, you can forget about building the hotel." "Are you referring to the demolition fee? That should be from the Eastern Sea Group, not Haynes Industries. You should ask them instead of us." "I don't care. We're here for the money. All we know is that whoever works here will have some ways of getting it." "Let me check with the Eastern Sea Group." Kim stepped to the side to make a call. After receiving the information, she went back to the man. "They said they've already sent you the demolition fee." The man shrugged. "Maybe they have, but we don't think it's enough. You guys are doing construction here, so you should compensate us." "That's not our responsibility," Kim said firmly. "If you guys don't leave, I'll call the police." "Sure, go ahead and report us. We're not doing anything wrong. We're just here to defend our rights. When the police come, do you think they'll side with you or us?" The man wasn't afraid of the police because his boss, Sergio, had secretly gotten in contact with them. The police would take their side. The manager whispered, "Miss Kim, you can't call the police. Look at them. It's clear that they're not above violence. If the police come, they might leave for today and come back another time to get back at us." "Then what should we do?" Kim asked. The construction couldn't be delayed, otherwise they would be behind schedule. "Let's ask them how much they want," the manager suggested. "If Haynes Industries has money to spare, it'll be better to compensate them than ruin the schedule. This is an important project." "All right, that's all we can do for now." Kim turned to the man. "How much do you want?" "Not much." The man held up a hand, indicating 5 of his fingers. 500,000? Kim asked. That was a reasonable amount that Haynes Industries could afford. The man pointed to the group of people behind him. "Miss Kim, are you making fun of us? Do you see them? We're here to make a living, and every single one of them has to be compensated fairly." It was obvious to Kim that the amount she suggested was too low for them. "Then tell me how much you want." The man grinned. 50 million. $50 million? That's ridiculous. Our company will never approve, Kim said. "You expect me to believe that?" the man with the tattoo asked. "Haynes Industries has taken on projects that were worth several hundred million before. 50 million is nothing to them. Anyway, that's not the point. If you don't want us to stand here every day, then give us the compensation we're asking for. Otherwise, don't even think about building the hotel." The manager of the construction site whispered anxiously, "Miss Kim, what should we do?" If the construction was delayed, none of the workers would be paid. It was the same as having no income. It was understandable that the manager was concerned. But the group who had been responsible for the demolition were clearly hoodlums. This wasn't a situation that could be handled so easily. "Tell the workers to take a break. I'll think of a way to deal with the demolition group. 50 million isn't a small sum. I'll have to discuss this with the company." Kim tried her best to reassure the manager. "Don't worry, we won't be held up for long." The man with the tattoo didn't stop her from leaving. Instead, he called out to her. "Miss Kim, please send 50 million as soon as possible. It would be best if we were compensated within 3 days. If it's beyond that, I can't guarantee what my colleagues will do to your construction site." When Kim returned to Riverview Villa, Stephen wasn't back yet. She told Natalie what happened, but neither of them had a solution. What if I spoke to Grandpa about this? The Eastern Sea Group's 5-star hotel project had left the construction work to Haynes Industries, and now the project was at risk of being delayed. As the CEO of Haynes Industries, Gordon wouldn't let things be. "I doubt he'll lend a hand," Natalie said. You've officially become the vice president of Haynes Industries, but you're personally in charge of the project. Your grandpa, grandma, and my sisters and their families won't get anything out of it. They won't help you. They might even tell you to give up your position with the excuse that you're not competent enough to take charge of an important project. Kim leaned back on the couch and stared at the ceiling, hoping that a solution would come to her. What if I ask Stephen? Maybe he'll be able to do something about this. Natalie rolled her eyes. And what exactly are you expecting him to do? He relied on cheap tricks to throw a surprise party for you. Would someone like him have any good ideas? Kim fell silent. If we really can't come up with anything, I'll have to go to the bank and see if I can get a loan. We have to take care of this soon. 1 hour later, Stephen returned home from grocery shopping and prepared lunch. While they were eating at the dining table, he sensed the tension in the atmosphere and noticed the worried look on Kim's face. When Stephen asked her if something had happened, she said she was fine. After lunch, Kim left the house in a hurry. Stephen decided to give Jack a call, asking him to find out what happened. It didn't take Jack long to get back to him. Apparently, a prominent figure in Santa Ana's underworld named Sergio had instructed his subordinates to surround the construction site. Stephen made another call, this time to Captain Floyd. He asked him to send the special forces to the construction site where the hotel would be built. Captain Floyd was thrilled to have an opportunity to carry out a mission under Stephen's orders. He mobilized the special forces in less than a minute and headed to the site. At the same time, the man with the tattoo wasn't sitting around and doing anything either. He had instructed one of his underlings to follow Kim and keep an eye on her. When the underling saw Kim entering a bank, he informed his boss that she was most likely getting the $50 million ready. Upon receiving the news, the man with the tattoo called his own boss, Sergio, and told him that the money would be transferred soon. Sergio was currently at a casino, gambling with a few other high-ranked bosses of the underworld. Unfortunately, luck wasn't on his side today. He'd lost several consecutive rounds, and he had almost no money left. After receiving an update from his subordinate, Sergio threw his cards on the table and stood up. I'll be back in a bit. I have to leave to get more money. I struck a good deal. A man with a cigarette in his hand eyed him curiously. What deal? Tell me about it. Have you heard about Eastern Sea Group's 5-star hotel project? They appointed Kim Cassidy, the president of Haynes Industries, to manage the construction. I gave her a little warning and talked her into giving me $50 million. The man's eyes widened. He almost dropped his cigarette. What did you just say? You threatened Kim Cassidy? Sergio gave him a puzzled look. Yeah, so what? Why are you so surprised, Trent? Trent was the same thug who had recognized Stephen in front of the karaoke place. He was also the one who told the owner to make Stephen the 888,888th customer and waive his bill to only $1. Trent was aware of Stephen's identity, and he also knew that Kim was his wife. Listen, you can't mess with Kim. You should hurry and apologize to her in person. Sergio snickered. What the hell are you on about? While he wasn't the head of Santa Ana's underworld, he and his subordinates weren't weak by any means. Even Trent and the other bosses couldn't look down on him as they pleased. Sergio, take my advice, Trent said earnestly. Stop whatever you're doing. You might still have a chance to get out of this. Why should I? I've come this far, and the money's practically in my hands already. Oh, I see. Are you telling me this because you're envious of my deal with Kim? Don't worry, Trent. When I get the $50 million, I'll treat you to an even fancier casino. Trent was taken aback by the way Sergio was twisting his good intentions. He was just being kind and looking out for him. Trent sighed as he watched Sergio run out of the casino. It was a shame he couldn't reveal Stephen's identity. Things probably weren't going to end well for Sergio tonight. Stephen arrived shortly after the special forces hid in the construction site's vicinity. After discovering that he was Kim's husband, the manager seemingly found his backbone. "Mr. Adams, did you bring $50 million?" "No, I came empty-handed." The manager deflated, and his short-lived backbone had disappeared. Many construction workers were waiting to come back to work, and coming empty-handed wouldn't put food on their tables. "Aren't you here because you have a solution?" "Who said that coming empty-handed wouldn't solve the problem? We don't owe them $50 million, so why should we give it to them?" "I know, but that's the only way to take care of this mess." Stephen patted the manager's shoulder. "Leave this to me. It's getting late. You and the other workers should call it a day." "I can't do that. Miss Kim told us that she would talk things out with the company. All of us are waiting for the construction to begin." "You can think of me as Kim's representative. Rest assured, even if work has to stop for a while, you'll still be paid." When the manager continued to hesitate, Stephen added, "Not leaving yet? Do you want to stay and watch me fight?" Hearing that Stephen was going to use violence, the manager hurried away with the construction workers. The man with the tattoo noticed the commotion. He grabbed a steel pipe and walked up to Stephen. "Who are you? Don't stick your neck where it doesn't belong." "I'm Kim's husband," Stephen said calmly. The man narrowed his eyes. "Looks like Miss Kim was too scared to come back. Where's the $50 million?" "I didn't bring any money, but I did bring my fists." Without a warning, Stephen punched the man in the face. The man recoiled in surprise and called out to his underlings, "Get him!" More than 50 people rushed towards Stephen, but none of them could land a scratch on him. No one could even get close, and before long, they lay writhing in pain on the ground. Stephen stared at the man with the tattoo. "Do you still want money?" The man had no choice but to retreat with his underlings. He whipped out his phone and called Sergio. "The situation's changed. Kim found a thug to get rid of us. He beat all of my men up."
"I'll be right away with backup. They couldn't lose out on $50 million.
Sergio notified hundreds of his subordinates, and together they rushed to the construction site. The man with the tattoo pointed at Stephen. "It's him. He did this to us." "Are you Kim's husband? You really know how to fight. But that was only 50 people. Think you can take on hundreds of my subordinates? They're the best of the bunch, and they live a life of bloodshed. If you surrender now and hand over the $50 million, I can consider letting you go." "I don't think they're a match for my subordinates," Stephen said. He whistled, and the sound of footsteps and roaring trucks could be heard. Several military trucks pulled up to the site, and one by one, soldiers in uniform, armed with guns, stepped down. They surrounded Sergio and his subordinates and aimed their guns at them. The man with the tattoo and Sergio looked at each other. It was the army. But how could they be here? Red beams of light flickered on their subordinates' faces. The man with the tattoo pointed to the rooftop of a building nearby. Sergio turned and saw a group of snipers aiming their rifles at them. His knees went weak. Just who was this man standing in front of them? He had mobilized the army, and there were even snipers waiting in ambush. Sergio and his subordinates were no match for them. Even if he had thousands of people on his side, none of them would ever be on par with the military. They were cornered. Captain Floyd, who was leading the team, strode up to Stephen and saluted him. "Hello, Chief. Santa Ana's special forces have the construction site surrounded. Please give us your instructions." Sergio was stunned when Captain Floyd addressed Stephen as chief. Captain Floyd was well known in the city of Santa Ana, but even he had to regard Stephen as his superior. Sergio didn't have the courage to scrutinize Stephen's real identity.
These people have committed heinous crimes and are obstructing the construction of a 5-star hotel. They've extorted money from civilians, and they're a danger to the city. Treat them as criminals and round them up." "Yes, sir." Captain Floyd waved his hand at his soldiers. "Get ready." Even though Sergio held a lofty position in the underworld, he had never experienced such a situation before. He tossed away his weapon and kneeled on the ground in surrender. The man with the tattoos and the rest of the group threw away their pride and followed suit. This had been Stephen's goal from the very beginning. If rumors were spread that an influential figure of the underworld was supporting the construction of the 5-star hotel from the sidelines, no one else would dare to delay the construction. The police had connections with the underworld, and even if they did lock Sergio and his subordinates up, they would be released the next day and come back to threaten Kim and the manager. The appearance of the military was the only way Stephen could force Sergio and his subordinates to back down. "I can let you off, but on one condition," Stephen said. "You and your group have to help out with the construction. To make up for the losses the workers suffered because of you, none of you will be paid. Think of it as volunteer work." Sergio was grateful that Stephen was willing to spare them. How could he ask for money? "Thank you, Mr. Adams." "Get up," Stephen said. "Starting tomorrow, bring your group and come to work. By the way, Sergio, do you have something you want to tell me?" Attempting to extort $50 million from a huge project like the Eastern Sea Group's 5-star hotel, which everyone in the city had their eyes on, would only draw unnecessary attention to Sergio and his subordinates. It would be more realistic to ask for a few million. Haynes Industries was aware of how important this project was, so they wouldn't mind spending a bit more money to make it a success. It was clear that Sergio had demanded $50 million under someone else's orders. The knowing look in Stephen's eyes was unnerving. Sergio stuttered as he told him everything. Actually, it wasn't me who came up with this idea. Someone gave me $10 million and told me to come to the construction site and make things difficult for Miss Kim." "Who gave you the $10 million? Stephen asked. He suspected that the culprit was one of Natalie's brothers-in-law. Sergio confirmed his suspicion, and it wasn't just one of them. It was all of them. Natalie's 4 brothers-in-law had chipped in and given him $10 million. It seemed like Kim becoming the vice president had made them uneasy. This was not a small conspiracy, and without Gordon and Mavis's approval, they wouldn't have dared to throw away so much money and attempted something on such a large scale. The next morning, as Sergio had promised, he and his subordinates came to the construction site. But not to make trouble, they were here to work. They were well built, and it wasn't difficult for them to pick up manual labor. They were just as competent as the construction workers. The manager was stupefied as he watched Sergio and his hundreds of subordinates work diligently. Stephen arrived and greeted the manager with a smile. "The problem from yesterday has been resolved. They're here as volunteers to help out with the construction. Feel free to tell them what to do. If they don't listen, be sure to let me know." Sergio was passing by with a wooden plank in his arms and overheard their conversation. "Mr. Adams is right. We'll help out any way we can." The manager didn't know how Stephen had tamed Sergio, the man with the tattoo, and their subordinates overnight, but he was suddenly motivated by all this free labor. "Mr. Adams, I'll work hard and make sure this project is completed on time." At Haynes Industries, Natalie's brothers-in-law were frantically waiting for an update from Sergio. "We should give him a call," Linda's husband said. Gianna's husband agreed. "He took $10 million from us, and we can't just ask him for the money back. Sergio went to the construction site yesterday. Why hasn't he gotten in contact with us yet? Do you think he ran away with the money?" Kelly's husband took out his phone. "I'll call him right now." He dialed Sergio's number as he spoke. Sergio bristled with anger when he received a call from Kelly's husband asking about the $50 million. Because of them, he and his subordinates had been driven into a miserable corner last night.
Is money the only thing on your mind? Miss Kim's husband came to the construction site yesterday, and I almost lost my life. To hell with the 50 million.
After spewing a string of curses, Sergio hung up and returned to the pile of bricks he had been sorting.
What did he say?
Linda's husband asked. Kelly's husband stared at his phone.
From his attitude, I assume he didn't get the 50 million. Also, he met Stephen there yesterday. He must have done something to make Sergio angry.
Linda's husband slammed his fist on the table. Why did that good-for-nothing go to the site? He must have had too much free time on his hands. Wait, what if Sergio thinks we sent Stephen there on purpose to make a fool out of him? I think we should meet with him and clear the air. Sergio was well known on Santa Ana's streets. If he misunderstood and thought that they had plotted against him, he would surely seek them out for revenge. As such, Natalie's brother-in-law hurried to the construction site to search for him. They were expecting to see Sergio and his subordinates surrounding the site, but to their surprise, the construction work was in full swing. They couldn't even catch a glimpse of Sergio. Linda's husband looked around in confusion. What's going on? Do you think he ran away?
Probably not, Kelly's husband said. We should ask one of the workers.
He noticed a worker nearby moving bricks and tapped him on the shoulder.
Excuse me, I'm looking for someone.
Kelly's husband stopped short when the worker raised his head. It was Sergio. He was wearing a safety helmet and his face was covered in mud. For a second, Kelly's husband thought he'd recognized the wrong person, but when the man spoke, it was clear that he was indeed Sergio.
What are you guys doing here?
Kelly's husband quickly explained himself.
We know that Kim's useless husband came here yesterday and offended you. We're here to clarify the misunderstanding. We didn't know he would come.
So, you're playing innocent? Sergio cursed and glared at the four of them. Remember this. From now on, we have nothing to do with each other. And if you find someone else to give Miss Kim a hard time, don't blame me for coming after you. The four of them looked at each other. They couldn't understand how things had turned out this way. Linda's husband calmly analyzed the situation and came to a conclusion. It had to have been the owner of Eastern Sea Group. I think we should let this go. Megan's husband was reluctant.
That's easy for you to say. 2.5 million might not mean anything to you, but it's a lot of money for me. You're not the only one who paid 2.5 million, Kelly's husband said. But the money's with Sergio. Are you going to ask for it back?
Megan's husband wisely shut his mouth. Asking Sergio for money would be like begging for death. After confirming that Sergio and his subordinates were at the construction site, Stephen headed to Santa Ana's military camp. It had been some time since Melinda had arrived in Los Angeles, but she hadn't made a move. There was a high chance that she was cooking up a nefarious plan in secret. Ever since Stephen came to Santa Ana, he could sense someone lingering in the shadows. It could be Melinda herself or one of her people. When Melinda was in Washington, D.C., she excelled at her job, which was to assassinate anyone who got in the Addams family's way. Stephen had to be careful when dealing with her. At the military camp, he asked Xavier if anyone among his troops was skilled at scouting.
There is a soldier named Flynn. He's a scout who specializes in stealth and tracking people down. I believe he's the right person for the job. Okay, I trust your judgment. I'll leave this task to him.
Xavier felt a sense of pride knowing that Stephen trusted him. When it came to military merits and achievements, no one could compare to Stephen, not even him. Xavier was only slightly older than Stephen, but their strength was worlds apart. Meanwhile, Kim was panicking at home. Yesterday, she had gone to the largest bank in Santa Ana to apply for a loan, but they rejected her request. Kim was already stressed from her workload ever since she had taken on the position of vice president, and the $50 million compensation only made it worse. She was physically and mentally exhausted by the time she came home.
Kim was hoping she could talk about her concern with Stephen. Even if he didn't have a solution, he would always be there for her and offer her comfort that no one else could. But he was nowhere to be found. Kim had no choice but to deal with her stress on her own. She took a quick shower and went to bed, crying herself to sleep. The next morning, Kim still couldn't find Stephen anywhere. She received a call from Linda, who told her that Stephen had insulted a thug named Sergio and warned her to be careful. "I told you, Stephen does nothing but cause us trouble," Natalie said in frustration. "Now that he's messed with Sergio, we can't stay in Santa Ana anymore." Kim was worried about Stephen after the phone call. "Mom, Stephen most likely found out about what happened at the construction site, so he went there to have a talk with them because he wanted to help me. But there's no way he could fight that many people on his own. He didn't come home last night. What if Sergio has him?" Unbeknownst to Kim and Natalie, when Stephen returned home last night, it was past 1 o'clock. He didn't want to wake Kim, so instead of going upstairs, he slept on the couch in the living room. And in the morning, Stephen went straight to the construction site, so no one had seen him since yesterday. Natalie let out a sigh. "Why are you concerning yourself with him at a time like this?" Kim stood up and grabbed her phone. "I have to go back to the bank and get that loan. When Sergio and his group get the $50 million, they'll have to let Stephen go." Natalie called after Kim as she ran out the door, but she ignored her. The president of the bank, Alexander Klein, wasn't pleased to see Kim again. "I told you this yesterday, Miss Kim. We can't give Haynes Industries a loan of $50 million. "I'm here for a personal loan." "That's even more impossible. It's not easy for a $50 million personal loan to be approved." "Please, I really need the money." Alexander took a seat on the couch and gazed at Kim. "Under normal circumstances, our bank would never agree. But I can see that you're desperate. While I can't help you personally, I do know someone who works in the finance industry. He can lend you $50 million without collateral. Coincidentally, I'll be having dinner with him this evening. Would you like to come with me?" Kim was relieved that she had a chance to get the $50 million to save Stephen. "Thank you so much, Mr. Klein." "Of course. I'm only trying to help. Remember to dress up." At 5 p.m., a Mercedes-Benz S-Class pulled up to Kim in front of the hotel. Alexander stepped out of the car and greeted her. "Miss Kim, you're here early." His eyes raked over her body. Kim had changed out of her blazer and business skirt. She was in a short dress, black tights, and heels. Alexander stared at her. "These clothes suit you much better. You should dress like this more often. Your work clothes are too formal." Kim smiled awkwardly and held out a hand towards the hotel. "After you." Alexander led her inside, and they took a seat at the empty table in the restaurant. Kim looked around anxiously. "Where's your friend?" The smile slipped from Alexander's face. "Miss Kim, you're here to ask him for help. You should be understanding if he's running a bit late." He did have a point. Kim apologized for being impatient. "I understand that you're in urgent need of money, but as you know, CEOs like them are busy and their time is valuable. We should wait patiently." Alexander poured a glass of wine for her. "Let's have a few drinks and chat while we wait." "Shouldn't we wait until your friend gets here?" Alexander's phone rang and interrupted them. He excused himself and left his seat to take the call. A few minutes later, he returned. "I'm really sorry. That was my friend. He said there's a traffic jam and he'll be a half an hour late." He slid the glass of wine towards Kim. "Let's drink to pass the time." "No, thank you. I'm cutting back on alcohol." "Is that so? Miss Kim, let me put it this way. When my friend arrives, I'll be helping you persuade him for that loan. Can't you have one drink to show your gratitude? If you keep refusing, I might sit there and enjoy our meal instead." Kim understood what he was trying to say. If she wanted that $50 million loan, she would have to accept this drink. She reluctantly raised the glass to her lips and took a sip. The wine burned her throat. But that wasn't enough for Alexander. Taking one sip isn't enough to show your sincerity. Kim gritted her teeth and downed the entire glass. When she put it down on the table, a wave of dizziness washed over her. Her vision blurred and everything went black. Alexander called 2 waitresses over. "My friend is drunk. Please help me bring her to room 888. Room 888 was a private room on the 30th floor that Alexander had booked for a long time at this hotel. This was a room for him and the women he chose to invite. Yesterday, when Kim had come knocking on his office door at the bank, it only took one glance for Alexander to be captivated by her beauty. A plan surfaced in his mind when she came to the bank again today. While he did have many acquaintances in the financial industry, none of them would be coming tonight. The staff at the hotel were already used to Alexander's behavior. He would give them several $1,000s in tips for their services, and they would gladly accept because that was enough to pay for their rent for the next 2 months. Who could refuse money in exchange for a simple task? In room 888, Alexander loomed over Kim, who was unconscious on the bed. Her face was flushed, and somehow she was even more enticing than before. He took a swig from a bottle of alcohol and headed to the bathroom for a shower. By the time Stephen returned home from the military camp, it was already late in the afternoon. Kim wasn't home, and he'd already resolved the issue with Sergio and his group, so she was probably at Haynes Industries. Kim would be getting off work soon, so he took a cab to the company to pick her up. But she wasn't there either. "Miss Kim went to the bank to apply for a loan. She hasn't returned since she left," her secretary said. Linda spotted Stephen as she was leaving. "It's true. I just got back from the bank, and I heard Kim has an appointment with the bank president, Alexander Klein, tonight. Coincidentally, they'll be having a meal together at a hotel restaurant." She looked at her watch. "They should be there already. After their meal, maybe they'll get a room and enjoy themselves. There won't be any problems with the loan after that." Stephen glowered at her. "Shut up. Kim's not that kind of person." Whether she is or isn't, I don't know. But Alexander sure is. He'll try to get any woman who catches his eye into his bed. What's more, Kim had a request for him. If the deal goes through, we'll have Alexander's bank as one of our connections, and maybe our reputation in the city will get better. There's nothing you can contribute, but Kim is your wife. Letting her do this for the sake of the company is the least you could do. Before Linda could finish, Stephen was already out the door. There was no time to waste. Kim was in danger, and every minute counted. He called Jack. "I'll give you 30 seconds. Find out where Alexander Klein is. He's the president of a bank in Santa Ana." Jack realized how dire the situation was from the short deadline. In 20 seconds, he reported back to Stephen. As he spoke, he sent a message with the hotel's address.
After Miss Kim got drunk, she was brought upstairs. Alexander has been staying in room 888 at the hotel for a long time. It's rush hour, and if you drive there now, you won't make it in time.
"What about the helicopter?" Stephen asked.
Yes, that's the fastest possible route.
"All right, I'll ask Captain Floyd to make arrangements for a helicopter. Send me a layout of the hotel." Stephen hung up and called Captain Floyd, who sent over a military helicopter as soon as he received the order. While Stephen was on his way to the hotel, Jack sent him the hotel's layout with room 888 marked. Alexander came out of the bathroom after a quick shower, not bothering to put on a shirt. He went to the bed and gazed at Kim. She was still unconscious. Just as Alexander was about to undress her, the sound of a helicopter caught his attention. He turned and saw a military helicopter outside the window. The cabin door opened, and a man crashed into the glass. The window shattered, and he rolled to a stop on the floor. Alexander was startled. "Who are you? What are you doing here?" Stephen ignored him and looked at Kim. Her clothes were intact, but her face was flushed. He was relieved that he'd made it in time. Alexander hadn't touched her yet. "Are you Alexander Klein?" Alexander straightened. I am, but who are you? Why did you barge into my room? If you don't answer, I'll call the police. His tone was calm, but a man jumping down from a military helicopter and crashing through a window on the 30th floor of a high-rise hotel was enough to scare anyone. If Alexander said he wasn't afraid, that would be a lie. You're not qualified to know my identity, Stephen said. He threw a dagger onto the floor. I'll give you 2 options. End your life or break your arms and legs. Anyone who dared to mess with Kim would pay. Alexander stared at the dagger embedded in the carpet. Who do you think you are? Do you know who I am? That's not important. You can call the police if you want, but I can't guarantee you'll survive long enough to speak to them. Based on what you did tonight, the police should be coming to arrest you. Alexander felt his blood run cold when he met Stephen's cold gaze. There was no doubt that he would be tortured and killed mercilessly if he didn't make a choice. Alexander's voice trembled. I choose the second option. Then break your own arms and legs. Do you want to do it yourself, or do you want me to do it for you? I'll do it myself, Alexander said shakily as he stole a glance at the dagger. Stephen couldn't be standing more than 5 feet away. He would grab the dagger and slit his neck within 10 seconds. Alexander repeated his plan in his head one more time before pulling the dagger out of the floor and lunging at Stephen. Stephen didn't even try to dodge. How could an ordinary person like Alexander be a match for him? When Alexander rushed at him, he snatched the dagger and cut off his arm. Blood splattered on the nightstand and dripped on the floor. Everything had happened in an instant. Alexander collapsed on his knees, and his pained cry resounded throughout the room. It took all he had to raise his head and glare at Stephen. Kill me if you have the courage, but if I die, my family will come after you. Fitting last words for a criminal like you, but I won't kill you. You're from the Klein family in Santa Ana, right? I'll keep you alive so you can pass on my message to your father. Alexander had gotten his position as the president of the bank because he was the son of the wealthy Klein family. His father, Douglas Klein, was the head of the family. And he owned a company that took on projects in many different industries, such as real estate, mining, transportation, and others. His assets were worth more than $10 billion, and it wouldn't be an understatement to call him the richest man in Santa Ana. The economic development of the city depended on how well Douglas's businesses were faring. With Santa Ana's economic lifeline in his hands, Douglas was more than capable of exacting vengeance against the man who'd almost killed his son. Chaos erupted when Alexander was sent back to the Klein family's mansion with 3 broken limbs and 1 arm missing. Douglas was furious at the bloody scene. His son was on the brink of death. Douglas clenched his fists. Each finger was adorned with rings of gold. Who did this? I'm going to kill him. Kim Cassidy of Haynes Industries, her husband Stephen Adams, did this to me, Alexander cried. Douglas turned to his subordinate and roared, Gather our people. We're going to Haynes Industries. Aside from being the determining factor of Santa Ana's economy, Douglas was also the leader of a group known for their astonishing combat capabilities. When Kim woke up, her first thought was that she had a pounding headache. Her second thought was that she was lying in a bed, one that was not as comfortable as her own at Riverview Villa. She kept her eyes closed as panic seized her chest. The last thing she remembered was dining with Alexander at a restaurant. Where was she? And how did she get here? Kim cracked open an eye and saw Stephen sitting next to her on the bed. Relief washed over her. She turned her head. Sunlight was streaming through the windows. Where are we? Kim, you're awake, Stephen said with a smile. You've been asleep since yesterday evening. It's 8 o'clock in the morning. We're at a hotel, and this is room 888. It's the same room that Alexander Klein uses to sleep with his clients. Kim sat up with a start and looked down. To her relief, she was fully clothed. It looked like she hadn't become one of Alexander's playthings in her drunken stupor last night. "Did you come here to save me?" Stephen nodded. "Of course. I'm sorry I was late, Kim. I should have told you earlier that everything at the construction site was settled. You wouldn't have had to plead with Alexander." When he brought up the construction site, Kim remembered that he had gotten into a conflict with Sergio and his group. "You didn't come home the other night. Are you okay?" Stephen gave her a puzzled look, but then realization dawned on him. Kim and Natalie were already asleep by the time he came home at 1 o'clock, and he'd left early in the morning before they woke up. Kim probably heard about how he'd paid a visit to the construction site and thought that he was in trouble. "I'm fine. I did come home the other night, but I slept on the couch because I didn't want to wake you up." Kim let out a sigh of relief. "Thank goodness. I thought something happened to you. But how did you resolve the problem? Did you get $50 million? She couldn't even get the bank to give her a loan. How would Stephen be able to get $50 million? Stephen chuckled. "Giving them $50 million isn't the only solution. I have my own ways of solving things." Kim went to the bathroom to wash up. After having a quick breakfast, she left the hotel with Stephen. She was curious to see how he'd managed to deal with those hoodlums. As for room 888, the glass window had been broken last night, but none of the hotel staff dared to ask Stephen for compensation. With Jack's warning, they also promised not to divulge what had happened to anyone. Before Kim had woken up, the hotel staff had cleaned the room and repaired the window. When they arrived at the construction site, Kim was surprised to see the man with the tattoo working hard to carry buckets of cement. Other than him, more than 500 other workers were working like their lives depended on it. She couldn't remember their company hiring this many construction workers, so she surmised that some of them were demolition workers. When Sergio and the man with the tattoo saw Kim, they came over and greeted her. "Good morning, Miss Kim." The man with the tattoo's change in attitude left her speechless. It had only been 1 day since he came here demanding $50 million. Now, he was passionately working to build a 5-star hotel. What in the world was going on? "They volunteered to make up for the losses and working here for free. They'll be working until the hotel is completed," Stephen explained. The man with the tattoo and Sergio quickly agreed. "That's right, Miss Kim. We've brought more than 500 people with us. Even if we have to work overtime, we'll make sure the hotel is completed on schedule." Kim was even more confused. They seemed to be afraid of Stephen. She pulled him aside. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything. My fist did the talking." Kim's phone rang before she could question him further. It was Gordon. Ordinarily, he would never call her, and that hadn't changed after she became the vice president. "Kim, hurry back home. Something serious has happened." After Gordon finished his sentence, he hung up. Kim and Stephen exchanged a glance. They left the construction site and took a cab back to the Haynes family's house. Gordon and Mavis had been waiting for them. Natalie and her older sisters were also present, and the atmosphere was tense. "What's wrong, Grandpa?" Kim asked after entering the house. "Are you really asking me that? Think hard about what you've done," Gordon said icily. "Kim, you went to Alexander Klein for a loan, but you ended up messing with the entire family," Linda said. "They've prepared a group of people to ambush the company, and they're demanding for us to hand you over. Otherwise, we'll be done for."
"My husband and the others are still at the company," Kelly said anxiously. "Dad, none of them did anything wrong, but they're taking the fall for Kim and Stephen. That's not right."
Linda raised her hand. "I agree." Gianna and Megan chimed in. "I agree as well." "Since everyone is in agreement, then the matter has been decided," Gordon said. "Kim and Stephen will go to Haynes Industries and explain themselves to Lucas Klein." Natalie hurriedly defended them. No matter how useless Stephen was, he didn't deserve to be sent to his death. "Dad, Kim is your granddaughter, and she's also the vice president of Haynes Industries. As for Stephen, he's your grandson-in-law. You can't just give them up like this." "Natalie, you and I both know that we don't have a choice. These people are dangerous, and Lucas has asked for both Kim and Stephen to see him." Stephen interjected. "We'll go, but I'm sure all of you are aware that we're not the real cause of this predicament. If it weren't for your ridiculous plans, today's incident wouldn't have happened."
"What are you talking about?" Mavis asked angrily.
"A group of people going to the construction site of an important project to cause trouble and ask for $50 million from Kim. I think everyone is well aware of what's really going on. Kim went to the bank to ask for a loan from Alexander so that the project could be successful. Not only did none of you lend her a hand, but you're also even adding insult to injury. Is this the true face of the Haynes family?" Everyone fell silent. Gordon and Mavis hadn't expected Stephen, of all people, to expose them. "What are you going to do if it's true?" Linda asked defensively. "If you guys hadn't coveted Haynes Industries for yourselves, we wouldn't have to come up with this plan. I heard you injured Lucas's son badly. He'll never let you or Kim go. But don't worry. After you two die, my family will honor your deaths next year." Everyone else agreed with her. Giving you two up for the survival of the Haynes family is worth it. If their intentions weren't clear before, they were all laid out on the table now. The Haynes family was planning on saving themselves by sacrificing Kim and Stephen. This was the so-called reputable, wealthy Haynes family. There was no loyalty, and family relations meant nothing. Kim scanned their faces with a cold look in her eyes. "This started because of me, so I'll take responsibility. No need to worry, none of you will be affected." "Looks like you understand," Linda said. "Kim, I'll come with you," Stephen said. Kim nodded. "Okay." On their way to Haynes Industries, Stephen sent Jack a message asking him about Lucas's information. Stephen had originally thought that since Lucas held Santa Ana's economy in his grasp, his businesses were owned by the palace, but that wasn't the case. According to Jack, Lucas had ties with the Adams family in Washington, D.C. It couldn't have been a coincidence that Kim encountered Alexander. Melinda might have been the one behind it. She hadn't made a move since she had arrived to Los Angeles. This might have been part of her plan. Lucas's subordinates surrounded the entrance to Haynes Industries. The daily operations of the company couldn't go on as they normally did. When Stephen and Kim got out of the cab, they were immediately surrounded. Lucas stepped forward. "You're finally here, Miss Kim. You've got some nerve to get your husband to injure my son like that." "Mr. Lucas, your son was the one who intended on doing something to me. I was merely defending myself," Kim said. "Self-defense, you say?" Lucas sneered. "Does self-defense entail losing an arm and breaking limbs?" Kim was taken aback. She didn't know Alexander was injured this badly. "I'm the one who did that to your son," Stephen said. "He hurt many women from wealthy families in the past, and he was intending on doing the same to my wife last night. Your son is a criminal, and I've already been generous enough to spare his life." "Are you telling me to thank you?" "Sure, I thank you and your entire family. But today, you will pay with your blood. As for your lovely wife, I want all her limbs broken so she can spend the rest of her life with my son." Lucas gave his order, and more than 1,000 of his subordinates started to move. Kim shrank back. "What should we do?" she asked in a small voice. Stephen embraced her. "It'll be fine. Even if I get hacked to death, I won't let them hurt you. Not even a scratch." Kim covered Stephen's mouth with her hand. "Stop that. You're not allowed to die." Stephen looked at the crowd of people stalking towards them. Him? Die in a group like that? That would never happen. He wouldn't be afraid even if Lucas had brought 10,000 subordinates. Just as Stephen was about to make his move, another group of people walked towards the company. They surrounded Lucas and his 1,000 subordinates. Trent and Sergio were at the head. Lucas, the wealthiest man in Santa Ana, naturally didn't care about the underworld. As a matter of fact, they should be treating him with respect. "Trent, Sergio, what are you two doing here?" Sergio walked up to him. "Please take my advice and apologize to Mr. Adams. Depending on his mood today, maybe he'll let this matter go. We can even try to talk to him on your behalf." Did you lose your mind? Do you want me to apologize to this brat? What about my son? Trent spoke up. Mr. Lucas, I think you should listen to Sergio. Mr. Adams isn't someone you should mess with. Lucas threw his head back and laughed. We're in Santa Ana. There's nothing I can't do. Don't waste your breath. We can't stop you if you insist on going after Mr. Adams and his wife, but just know that we'll be standing on their side, Trent said. Trent and Sergio were both aware of Stephen's identity. Even though they were influential in the underworld, Lucas's strength was nothing to scoff at, but compared to Stephen, Lucas was nothing. When they heard that Lucas was planning to go against Stephen and Kim, they mobilized their subordinates to back them up. Trent and Sergio's subordinates took out their weapons. What's this? Are you trying to scare me just because you have the upper hand in numbers? I can assure you that no matter how many people you bring, Kim and Stephen won't be able to escape. Lucas's arrogant attitude made Trent and Sergio ready to fight him to the death. Before anyone could leap into battle, Lucas held up a hand. However, I have urgent matters to attend to at my company. I'll need to hurry back. But don't think this is over. Kim, Stephen, I'll give you 3 days to give me a satisfactory answer. Otherwise, you won't be as lucky as you were today. Lucas waved his hand at his subordinates and shouted, Let's go! He glared at Trent and Sergio as he walked past them. Then he pointed at Stephen. Remember, you only have 3 days. Lucas turned and walked away. His group of more than 1,000 of his subordinates followed him. When they were a good distance away, he whispered to his secretary, Take a peek behind you and see if they're following us. I don't think they are, his secretary replied. Okay, let's hurry up and leave. Lucas quickened his pace. Even though he had more than 1,000 people on his side, Trent and Sergio had combined forces, and their numbers were much higher than his. Trent and Sergio were both competent bosses in the underworld, and Lucas wasn't sure if he could win against them. He didn't know why they were protecting Stephen and his wife, but that was something that they would have to investigate once they got back. Meanwhile, Trent and Sergio's underlings watched them leave in disappointment. They were confident that they would have won. Unfortunately, Lucas had run away with his tail between his legs. Trigger warning, the following episode contains descriptions of suicide and violence, which some listeners may find disturbing. It is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. The Haynes family received news that Trent and Sergio had helped Stephen and Kim get out of the situation with Lucas. Everyone in the family was aware of Trent and Sergio's high status in the underworld. It was shocking to find out that they were acquainted with Kim and Stephen. No wonder they were so calm when they left the house, Linda exclaimed. I wonder why Sergio's attitude changed all of a sudden, Kelly said. Her husband had asked Sergio to stir up trouble at the construction site to make things difficult for Kim, but he'd backed out halfway through the plan. Stephen and Kim have Trent and Sergio on their side, so Lucas won't touch them for now. But we don't have anyone. He'll definitely turn his attention to us. What should we do? Gianna asked. Everyone became anxious. I think Cohen should take care of this, Megan suggested. He works in the government, so Lucas would at least have to hear him out. I guess that's the only way, Linda said helplessly. But she wasn't confident. She had personally witnessed her husband groveling on the floor when Lucas paid him a visit. Lucas was too powerful. She could only hope that her husband would make it out alive. At this time, Lucas had returned to his mansion. The more he thought about his encounter with Kim and Stephen, the more he thought it was ridiculous. Why would Trent and Sergio protect them? He was Santa Ana's economic lifeline, but he couldn't do anything against them. A woman in a black leather jacket and boots crossed the living room and took a seat in front of him. Lucas was startled by the unexpected visitor. He hadn't even heard her walk in. Miss Melinda? He stuttered. I swear I had to leave because Trent and Sergio are too skilled in fights. I may not have subordinates, but they're no match for either of them. Save it. I brought someone to help you. Melinda snapped her fingers. One of the mansion's staff was thrown into the room. In the next second, A man of large stature pounced on him and tore him to shreds, literally. Lucas looked on, frozen in fear. Was this man even human? A name flashed in his mind. Is he? Yes, Melinda said with a smile. He's Alaric, the martial arts genius with cannibalistic tendencies. He killed off all the big shots in Santa Ana's underworld 10 years ago and disappeared without a trace. In truth, the Addams family subdued him and imprisoned him in one of Santa Ana's caves. He finally came in handy today. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine as he watched Alaric swallow human flesh. He was glad that he and the Addams family had an alliance. Are you full yet? Melinda asked Alaric, who was wolfing down his meal. Alaric didn't answer. He continued to eat, but at a faster pace. After you've eaten your fill, get back to work. Melinda took out 2 photos, one of Trent and one of Sergio. Your task is to get rid of these 2 people. Alaric let out an inhuman growl. Melinda turned to the door and shouted, Who's there? Stop sneaking around and show yourselves. It was Linda's husband, Cohen, who had just arrived at the Klein family's mansion. When he saw Alaric eating a person, his knees went weak and he dropped to the floor. Cohen trembled when Alaric's gaze swept over him. He raised his hands in surrender. Don't kill me. Mr. Lucas, you recognize me, don't you? I'm Cohen. What are you doing here? Lucas asked coldly. Cohen hurriedly explained himself. We know that Stephen and Kim injured your son, but I came here on behalf of the Haynes family to tell you we have nothing to do with them. Is this how the Haynes family apologizes? You've brought nothing to show your sincerity, Melinda said, fixing her gaze on him. Cohen nervously averted his eyes. Melinda was a beautiful woman who could command Alaric, a human who resembled a wild beast. From now on, Kim and Stephen are no longer members of the Haynes family. Mr. Lucas, our family is willing to do anything for you. Alaric finished his meal and trained his dark green eyes on Cohen. Very good, Melinda praised. I hope you remember the promise you made today. If you dare go back on your word, then Alaric will be happy to play with you. Cohen wiped the sweat from his forehead. Yes, of course. After their nerve-wracking discussion, Cohen returned to the Haynes family's house. A lingering fear was ingrained deep in his bones long after he left the mansion. He couldn't even walk properly. Cohen informed everyone of what had happened. I didn't think Alaric, the man who killed the heads of Santa Ana's underworld 10 years ago, would show up. I'm afraid that no one can compete with Lucas in this city. Gordon remembered Alaric's name. 10 years ago, it was precise because Alaric had gotten rid of the underworld threat to Haynes Industries in one night that he had been able to take advantage of the opportunity and develop his company. Compared to the underworld, Alaric was much more terrifying. Kim and Stephen have Trent and Sergio to back them up. An Eastern Sea group said they wanted Kim to manage the 5-star hotel project. How do we kick her out of the family? Kelly's husband asked. Whether it was Alaric, Lucas, Trent, or Sergio, the Haynes family wasn't powerful enough to go against either one of them. I have an idea to remove Kim from the vice president position, Megan's husband said. It's almost time to compensate the construction workers. We can transfer out the funds from Haynes Industries and accuse her of embezzling the money. If the workers can't get compensation, they'll come to the company and riot. We can take this chance and deem her unworthy of the position. Then, we'll send Kim and her family back to Los Angeles and retain the peace in our family. No one was opposed to Megan's husband's idea. Santa Ana's largest casino was bustling late into the night. Standing across the street was a man with a physique similar to a brown bear. With an ominous glint in his eyes, he jaywalked to the entrance of the casino. One of the casino's staff greeted Alaric when he entered. Sir, are you here to play? Alaric didn't respond. Instead, he grabbed the staff's collar and threw him onto the table nearby. The table broke upon impact, sending the staff crashing unceremoniously to the floor. The gamblers were scared out of their wits. Tell your boss to come out, Alaric said. A group of thugs surrounded him. One of them came forward and cracked his knuckles. You'd better leave if you know what's good for you. As soon as these words left his mouth, Alaric closed the distance between them in a split second and slit his throat with his bare hand. Flesh and blood spewed in the air. Everyone stood frozen in place as they watched a murder play out right in front of them. The group of thugs retreated in fright and called Trent over. When Trent entered the casino, he was greeted by a burly man who was much taller than he was. A corpse was bleeding out on the floor next to him. "Who are you?" Trent asked cautiously. "Are you Trent, the boss of this casino?" "Yes, that's me." Alaric reached into his pocket and took out a photo, comparing the man with Trent. After confirming, he stuffed the photo back into his jacket and walked towards him. "You're my prey." Killing intent rolled off Alaric in waves. "Want to kill me? It won't be that easy." Trent pulled out a knife and lunged. But Alaric was too fast, and he possessed inhuman strength. He punched Trent in the face and smashed his head on the floor, killing him instantly. Everyone was terrified as they watched the brutal scene unfold before them. Trent was one of the 4 leaders of Santa Ana's underworld. His agility and strength were unparalleled, at least within the city. The number of people who could beat him had been counted on one hand. And this man, with a stature as large as a bear, had killed Trent with one punch. "This is what happens if you go against us." He tore Trent's picture in half and threw it on the floor before leaving the casino. "Next target, Sergio." Meanwhile, at Haynes Industries, someone walked down the dark hallway and entered a room with cubicles and computers. They took a seat at one of the desks and turned on the computer. Their fingers flew across the keyboard as they typed. After a moment, they leaned back in the chair and glanced at the security camera in the corner of the room. There was a triumphant smirk on their face. The next day, the city was rattled by an explosive piece of news. 2 leaders of Santa Ana's underworld, Trent and Sergio, had perished in their respective territories last night. Those who witnessed the incident had been so scared that none of them could properly explain what they had seen. Therefore, no one knew what the murderer looked like. However, there were rumors that Trent and Sergio had met their end at the hands of their vengeful enemies. It had been many years since they'd made a name for themselves in Santa Ana's underworld. They had too many enemies to count, so finding the culprits wouldn't be an easy task. Kim was in disbelief as she watched the morning news. "Stephen, Trent and Sergio were killed last night. Do you think it's because they helped us yesterday?" Her logic was reasonable. Only one day had passed since Trent and Sergio stood up to Lucas and his subordinates to protect them. And the next morning, they were dead. It couldn't have been a coincidence. But with Lucas's strength, killing Trent and Sergio in a single night was impossible. When Kim wasn't looking, Stephen contacted Flynn, the scout who Xavier had introduced to him. Flynn told him that 10 years ago, Alaric massacred the 10 leaders of Santa Ana's underworld. It was strange that Alaric had chosen now to reappear in public. Only one person could have been behind this: Stephen's aunt, Melinda. She was the only one who could order Alaric around. He was much stronger than Garrett's subordinate, Jacob. This confirmed that Melinda was supporting Lucas from behind the scenes. "Looks like the streets will be hectic for the next few days, Kim. I'll accompany you whenever you leave the house until this is over," Stephen said. Kim felt much safer knowing that he was around. Kim's phone rang. Her secretary was calling. "Bad news, Miss Kim. Something happened at the company. Please come as soon as you can." Kim and Stephen hurried to Haynes Industries. The entire Haynes family, with the exception of Natalie, was present. From the serious looks on their faces, whatever they were about to say couldn't be good. "Kim, how could you do this?" Linda demanded. "What's going on?" Kim asked in confusion. The financial director stood up from the table. "Miss Kim, today is the day we pay the construction workers for the 5-star hotel project. When I came to work this morning, our department's accounts were empty. There's not even a single cent. After investigating, I discovered that there was a large amount of money transferred out last night." "Are you implying that someone deliberately moved the money? Who was it?" Kim asked. "Your acting is pretty good," Linda said mockingly. "Don't you have any compassion for the construction workers? They're depending on today's paychecks." Kim glared at her. "Aunt Linda, what are you talking about? Are you saying I secretly took the money?"
Among those in the company, only the CEO and the vice president have the authority to privately move the funds in the financial department's accounts, Cohen said. Your grandpa and grandma clearly wouldn't do something like this, so you're the most suspicious. I heard you had the support of Trent and Sergio, but they died a violent death last night because they helped you. I guess you were afraid of the culprit coming after you, so you decided to steal whatever money you could and run away when you got a chance. Kim felt a headache coming on. That never crossed my mind. And I only found out about Trent and Sergio's deaths this morning. Linda scoffed. In any case, you've messed with Lucas, and without Trent and Sergio backing you up, you know you won't stand a chance in Santa Ana. So you stole the company's money to prepare for your escape.
It was a perfect plan, but it's a pity that we discovered it in time, Kelly said. I wasn't planning on running away, Kim said firmly. If you really think that I took the money for myself without permission, then check my bank account to see if it's there. Do you think we're idiots? Gianna asked. Why would you keep the stolen funds in your own bank account? That's like telling everyone that you're the culprit. Then what are you suggesting I do? Gordon, who had been silent since Kim entered the room, spoke up. Hand over the money and resign. You're my granddaughter, Kim, so I want to settle this peacefully. But if you continue to deny it, then we'll have to follow the law. Stephen's laughter filled the room. You've finally revealed your true intentions. All of you were beating around the bush and talking in circles, but what you really want is for Kim to resign from the vice president's position. She attained the right to inherit the business, so you all must be worried. That's nonsense, Mavis shouted. Stephen, shut up. There's no place for you to speak in the Haynes family. Kim held his arm. There's no point in provoking them. We should think of a way to prove my innocence. Okay then, let's investigate, Stephen said. Since the money was transferred last night, let's check the security cameras. Kim agreed with him. I was thinking the same thing. Surprisingly, Gordon, Mavis, and the rest of the Haynes family also agreed. When they went to the security room, Kim and Stephen realized why everyone had followed them without complaint. The money had been transferred around 10:30 p.m. last night. When the security guard pulled up the footage during that time, the screen was filled with static. It was clear that the footage had been damaged. Linda turned to Kim as if she had thought of something. Did you bring us here so that you could show us a damaged video to cover up what you did? It's obvious that she's behind it, Kelly said. The rest of the footage is fine. It's only around 10:30 when we can't see anything. I have to say, Kim, your plan was brilliant, Megan said. By destroying the evidence, no one can prove that you're the culprit, and you can run off scot-free with the money. Gordon gave Kim a disapproving look. Hundreds of construction workers are waiting to be paid. With such a large amount of money, you can leave Santa Ana unscathed. But what will happen to Haynes Industries? Because of you, our company will be ruined. What's more, me, your grandma, and your aunts may be thrown into prison for not paying our employees. Kim, are you enjoying this? Mavis narrowed her eyes. You damned girl. You want to ruin our company and our family. Stephen held up a hard disc. No need to raise your voices. You'll tire yourselves out. This is the footage from last night. I'll get it fixed. As long as the original is restored, the truth behind last night will come to light. Linda leaned against the table and crossed her arms. Repairing the original footage, it's already destroyed. I doubt any computer expert can recover the original files. Oh, really? Stephen asked with a knowing smile. Aunt Linda, how are you so sure that the video can't be recovered? Could it be that you're the one who damaged the footage? Linda's confident expression faltered for a brief second. What nonsense are you talking about? Stop slandering us, Cohen said. Stephen ignored them and faced Gordon. Give us 3 hours. When the footage is recovered, we'll know what really happened. Grandpa, I'm sure you're curious as to who stole your company's money, right? Gordon nodded. All right, I'll give you 3 hours, but if you can't prove that Kim's innocent, then she'll have to give us back the money and resign from her position. Sure, no problem. Stephen held Kim's hand and led her out of the security room. After they left, Linda turned to Cohen worriedly. Honey, do you think Stephen can really restore that video? Don't worry, he definitely won't be able to. I hired a skilled hacker to mess with it. Even someone from the National Security Agency won't be able to restore it. Kelly snorted.
Even if he can, Trent and Sergio are both dead. Kim doesn't have anyone to support her anymore. Who's stopping us from insisting that she stole the money? Besides, there's a high chance that Lucas hired someone to kill Trent and Sergio. He's really someone we can't mess with. We'll use Kim as our scapegoat to show that we're on his side.
That's right, Gordon said. Compared to sacrificing Kim, the future of the Haynes family is more important. Even though we're using an underhanded method, it took painstaking efforts to build up this company from scratch. I won't let them destroy my life's achievement. When Kim and Stephen returned to Riverview Villa, Natalie scolded him for being rash. Are you crazy? How are we supposed to restore a security camera in 3 hours? Kim's life is on the line, you know. Stephen reassured them. Don't worry, I met a hacker on the internet a while back. He has a knack for computers, and he can easily fix the video. Kim wasn't too confident, but she didn't have any other ideas. This was the only thing they could go on. Stephen gave Jack a call. I'm going to send you footage from a security camera. It's damaged. I don't care what you have to do, but restore it within the hour. The palace possessed half of the world's wealth, and finding a top-tier computer expert was a piece of cake. Jack sent a restored video back to Stephen in less than 15 minutes. Kim was surprised when Stephen told her that he had the results. That was fast. Let's watch it together, he said, pressing the play button on his screen. In the video, someone clad in black walked into the finance department. From their stature, they appeared to be a woman. She was wearing a mask and a large hat, so her face couldn't be seen. The woman took a seat at one of the desks and turned on the computer. The time on the screen was exactly 10:30 p.m. This was the time when a large amount of money had been transferred last night. Kim frowned. She's wearing a mask, so we can't see her face. Even though the video was fixed, it won't help us. Let's keep watching and see what happens, Stephen said. After the woman transferred the money, she raised her head to look into the camera. She pulled down her mask and smirked as if victory was hers. Her unnecessary actions were the fatal flaw in their ploy. The identity of the woman was as clear as day to Kim, Stephen, and Natalie. It was Linda, Natalie's oldest sister. Natalie was indignant the moment she saw Linda reveal her face. I didn't expect it to be her. She framed you, Kim, for something that she did. She's despicable. Stephen received a text from Jack. The recipient of the money that Linda had transferred from Haynes Industries' accounts was Gordon. This was more evidence that the Haynes family had colluded with one another to frame Kim. Even Gordon and Mavis were involved. Transfer the money to Linda's bank account, Stephen instructed. Understood, Jack replied. The palace consisted of its own group of specialized hackers. They could easily make changes to the funds in Linda and Gordon's bank accounts without leaving a single trace behind. They could even change the time when the funds were moved. Before 3 hours were up, they were ready to head back to Haynes Industries and clear Kim's name. This time, Natalie followed Kim and Stephen to the company. You're back, Linda called out when they entered the building. Did you restore the footage? Kelly grinned.
How could that be possible? In my opinion, they came back to beg for mercy. It hasn't been 3 hours yet, Gianna said. Kim probably realized that she has no way out but to admit her crimes.
Stephen waved the hard disk in his hand. Sorry to disappoint you, but we've recovered the video. He shifted his gaze to Linda. Do you want to take a look first? Linda's heart raced when she remembered her provocative gesture towards the camera last night, but she forced herself to calm down. Who are you trying to scare? Do you think you're some kind of hacker? How could it be repaired so easily? Stephen smiled and inserted the hard drive into the computer. You'll know soon enough. The same scene of a masked woman dressed in black with a large hat played on the screen. Natalie's sisters all started talking at once. Is that it? You may have restored the video, but we don't know who this woman is. Her face is all covered up. This doesn't prove anything.
How do we know she's not Kim? She's still a suspect. Linda didn't say anything. She was nervous. She hoped that the video would end here. But the video continued. 1 minute later, the woman looked into the camera and removed her mask. It was Linda. Kelly was dumbfounded by Linda's stupidity. She took advantage of the situation and pretended like she had no idea. Why is it you, Linda? I didn't think you would embezzle such a large amount of money from Dad's company. Gianna followed her lead. Mom and Dad trust you so much. How could you do that to them? Megan cut ties with Linda as well. You've disappointed all of us. Linda was stunned and speechless by their fragile sisterhood. They were all pretending like they didn't know about this and shoving her under the bus when each and every one of them had been involved. Linda turned around and looked at her husband, Cohen. He was wearing a righteous expression on his face. Honey, how could you do this to Kim? It wasn't a small amount either. You almost ruined her life when she was innocent all along. Even Gordon shook his head. He was disappointed in Linda. Why had she removed her mask? He had told her specifically to get out of there as soon as the transfer was complete. Everything would have worked out if she hadn't let her arrogance get to her. Stephen pressed her for an answer. Aunt Linda, what do you have to say for yourself? Linda panicked, and her mind went blank. Gordon came to her rescue. You can't put all the blame on Linda. Actually, I'm the one who told her to transfer the money. The city has been unstable lately, and I was worried that the company wouldn't be a safe place to keep the funds, so I told her to transfer the money into my bank account. I'm getting old, and my memory is starting to fail me. I forgot what happened last night and almost blamed Kim when she wasn't at fault. Yes, Dad told me to do it, Linda echoed. Trigger warning, the following episode contains descriptions of violence which some listeners may find disturbing. It is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Sure, you're old and your memory has deteriorated, but will you still say the same thing after knowing that you're being fooled? Stephen said. Linda frowned. What do you mean by that? It was obvious that Gordon had spoken up to cover for her and turned this problem into something trivial. She guessed that Kim, Stephen, and Natalie had caught on, but from the way Stephen was talking, it sounded like he knew something she didn't. I acknowledge that I'm old and that my memory isn't as good as it used to be, but I've been in this industry for decades. No one can fool me that easily. That's not necessarily true, Grandpa, Stephen said. You said that Aunt Linda transferred the money into your bank account, which means the bank should have sent you a message regarding the change in balance. I think it's best if you check your phone. There's no need for that. Linda is my oldest daughter, and I was the one who told her to do it. There's no mistake. Exactly, Linda said. From what I see, you're deliberately trying to drive a wedge between us. Stephen, who do you think you are? Cohen asked. You think you can say anything and make us believe you? Since Gordon was supporting Linda, Kelly, Gianna, and Megan changed their attitudes and did the same. You're just a son-in-law who only knows how to freeload. This is the Haynes family's business. You have no right to speak. Linda flashed a complacent smile. The director of the finance department rushed into the conference room. Mr. Gordon, the compensation for the construction workers has been delayed for almost a day. We can't drag this on any longer. Otherwise, they might not come to work tomorrow, and the project will have to be suspended. Gordon gave him an annoyed look. What's this about? Didn't I tell you to transfer the money from my personal bank account? I did as you asked, but you have insufficient funds in your account, the director explained. Gordon waved his hands dismissively. That's impossible. You must have gotten it wrong. Last night at 10:30, the compensation I prepared for the construction workers was transferred to my personal account. He took out his phone. Let me show you the message from the bank. When Gordon checked his texts, he was confused to see that he hadn't received any messages from the bank. What's going on? Why didn't the bank send me a message when such a large amount of money was transferred into my account? I receive messages every time. Maybe there's a delay in the bank's notification system, Linda suggested nervously. It's been more than 12 hours since 10:30 last night, the director said. How could there be a delay? Mr. Gordon, why don't you call the bank and verify the transfer? Gordon turned serious. There was a large amount of money at stake. After calling the bank, his expression darkened. He looked at Linda. Don't you have something to tell me? Linda was confused. What do you mean? The bank checked my account and told me that nothing was transferred last night. They said it was transferred into your personal account. Linda, why did you do that? What do you want? Dad, I really don't understand. What are you talking about? Give me your phone, Gordon ordered. Linda obediently handed over her phone, and he opened up her list of text messages. Sure enough, there was a recent message from the bank sent at 10:30 p.m. sharp. Gordon tossed her phone back. Take a look for yourself. What's the meaning of this? Linda was astonished when she read the text on her screen. She couldn't remember ever receiving this message. The only person in the room who knew what was going on was Stephen. This was the work of a highly skilled hacker from the palace. They had hacked into the bank system, transferred a lump sum of money, and modified Gordon and Linda's text messages. Dad, this has to be spam. I've never seen this message before. You don't need to explain. The bank confirmed that you received a large amount of money last night, and it was from Haynes Industries. Kelly, Gianna, and Megan once again turned their backs on Linda. Did you really do that? I didn't know you were this kind of person. This is so scary. Good thing Dad caught it in time. Linda could have run off with our money, and our company would have been ruined. Even Cohen looked like he wanted to draw a clear line between himself and Linda. Are you out of your mind? The fate of Haynes Industries depends on this money. How could you be this greedy? Tell me honestly, do you have another man out there? Did you take this money so you could leave me and get together with him? No, I really don't know why this money is in my account. Linda glanced at Mavis with a pitiful expression. Mavis looked away and acted as if none of this was her business. You don't need to explain anymore, Gordon snapped. From now on, you'll be removed from all positions in the company, and you will no longer be involved in our business. Also, I would advise you to hand over the money. If the police get involved, you'll be going to jail. Linda started panicking. Dad, don't call the police. I'll give the money to you. Kelly, Gianna, and Megan, who had once been on the same side as Linda, looked on with gloating expressions. Natalie was thrilled when she got home. Her older sister, who had never liked her and constantly bullied her, had been completely destroyed today. Natalie felt like the anger she'd accumulated over the years had vanished in an instant. And, in her eyes, Stephen didn't seem that annoying anymore. He was the one who'd gotten the video restored and repeatedly urged Gordon to check his phone. Kim was also in a good mood. With the false accusations out of the way, she could finally concentrate on the project again. As for Stephen, he sent Flynn a message asking if they could meet up. It had been 3 days since Flynn left the military camp to investigate Melinda. With his skills, Stephen guessed that he already had results. They met on the outskirts of the city. How's the investigating going with Melinda? I've tracked down her whereabouts. She's here in Santa Ana, and her target is you. Yesterday night, a man who goes by Alaric killed Sergio and Trent. Alaric killed the 10 leaders of Santa Ana's underworld 10 years ago, and the only people who can make him submit are the members of the Addams family. So they've dispatched that lunatic. Looks like Melinda has gone all out. Say, do you think her next target will be me? If Melinda dares lay a finger on you, I'll be the first one to take action. Stephen gave Flynn a thoughtful look. Rather than sitting here and waiting for death, it's better to take the initiative. Where's Melinda now? Melinda is residing in Lucas's home. Alaric is with her. Flynn paused, his eyes widening in realization. Chief, are you planning to head there now? Yes, since they're all there, why don't we catch them in one fell swoop? Flynn was excited at the thought of another secret mission with Stephen. Should we call Captain Floyd and have the special forces come with us? No, just the two of us are enough. Just us two, Flynn repeated incredulously. 10 years ago, Alaric was an A-rank fugitive, and the reward for his arrest was $1 million. He had evaded capture all this time, and since then, he'd grown stronger. According to Santa Ana's underworld rankings and strength, Alaric was almost S-rank. Seeing Flynn's expression, Stephen couldn't help but tease him.
Are you not confident in my abilities?
Flynn waved his hands in a panic.
No, I'm just worried about your safety. You hold an exalted status after all.
In the past, Stephen had single-handedly defeated 1,000 enemies and turned the tides of battle. His strength was unquestionable. If someone as incredible as Stephen were injured in any way, Flynn would never be able to live it down. That was why he was currently under a lot of pressure. At Lucas's mansion, Melinda was sitting on the couch with her legs crossed and propped up on the table. Lucas has purchased this table for hundreds of thousands of dollars, but he didn't dare to tell Melinda off. Alaric stood behind her, sending chills down his spine. Lucas stood to the side and kept his eyes on the floor. Occasionally, he would look up and see Melinda's long, attractive legs on the table. But then, his gaze would shift to Alaric, and he would stare at the carpet again. Lucas knew that he could lose his head at any moment with just a few words from the beauty to the beast in front of him.
Miss Melinda, what do you plan on doing next?
Lucas asked respectfully. Melinda smiled. Trent is dead, and so is Sergio. It's up to you now, Lucas. The decision is yours. The 3-day deadline you gave Kim and Stephen has arrived. Tomorrow, you'll go to Haynes Industries and get them to hand over Kim. If not, then you'll eradicate them as revenge for your son's death.
But my son isn't dead,
Lucas said. Alaric went into the other room, where Alexander was lying on a bed, covered in bandages. Without a moment's hesitation, he tore Alexander apart. Lucas resisted the urge to vomit. Your son is dead now, Melinda said coldly. Lucas, you don't have to be sad. Since your son was already in that condition, it's better for him to die here. My family will match you up with a woman near your age, and she'll give birth to your child.
Thank you, Miss Melinda.
Lucas's heart clenched at the thought of his son. He had raised him for so many years, but in the face of this terrifying, beast-like creature in front of him, his sorrow was washed away. Lucas gritted his teeth.
You're right. My son is dead, and this is all because of Kim's husband, Stephen. I'll have them pay with their lives tomorrow.
There's no need to wait until tomorrow. Let's settle this now. The door to the mansion was kicked open, and 2 people came inside. Stephen had his hands in his pockets as he sauntered over to Lucas and Melinda. Flynn followed him from behind. Lucas glared at him.
How dare you trespass into my house?
Let me take care of him. Alaric, who never spoke first, pushed Lucas aside and towered in front of Stephen like he was his prey. Since you've come of your own accord, then stay and play with my little bear, Melinda said with a smile. Alaric, I'll give you 10 minutes to finish him off. Stephen's gaze turned cold. Back then, a stranger's words had caused the family to turn against him. They cut the tendons in his hands and feet and threw him into the wilderness. It was pure luck that he'd managed to survive. But the Addams family was now refusing to let him go, and were even sending people to chase him down.
Aunt Melinda, shouldn't you have told your pet to keep me alive? If you kill me off, how will you use my bone marrow to save my brother who has leukemia?
What, are you afraid? Melinda giggled. Since you're going to die very soon, why don't I let you in on a little secret? Your sickly brother has nothing to do with me. I don't care whether he lives or dies. Trigger warning. The following episode contains descriptions of violence which some listeners may find disturbing. It is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised. If you died today, no one will be able to save your brother, and the opportunity to become the successor of the Addams family will be mine.
Melinda wasn't afraid of revealing her true intentions to Stephen. After all, dead men told no tales. The Addams family was anything but ordinary. Anyone could become the successor as long as they were competent and had the required qualifications. The two sons of the Addams family were Stephen and his older brother who had leukemia. If Stephen died, his brother would soon follow, and the seat for the successor would be empty. There were few people who were capable enough to rise to the top in the family, so Melinda had a high chance of winning. If she got rid of Stephen, she could return to Washington, D.C. and inform the family that Alaric had disobeyed her and push all the blame onto him. "It's a perfect plan, but unfortunately, the person dying here today won't be me," Stephen said. Alaric growled a second sentence. "1 minute is all I need." Melinda shrugged and picked up a glass of wine from the table, preparing to celebrate her victory. Alaric slowly made his way towards Stephen. The wooden floorboards were indented with every step he took. When he was 1 foot away from Stephen, he swung his fist at lightning speed. Lucas, who had witnessed Alaric's punches before, knew that this was the end for Stephen. But the scene didn't play out as it had all those other times. Stephen didn't move to dodge. He stood in place and grabbed Alaric's arm, stopping him mid-punch. Alaric couldn't wrestle free from his ironclad grip. The corners of Stephen's mouth curved upward as he flung Alaric across the room. Stephen looked like he was taking a casual stroll around a park when he encountered a wild bear charging at him. To defend himself, he grabbed it by the scruff and tossed it aside like it was nothing more than a tiny pest. Stephen grabbed Alaric by the collar and lifted him up with one hand, slamming him against the wall. Melinda and Lucas watched with wide eyes as Alaric was pushed further and further into the wall, a mere few seconds away from being crushed alive. Lucas was so scared that his entire body was trembling. Alaric was frightened enough, but who would have thought that he would be helpless in front of Stephen? Flynn's eyes shone with excitement. Was this the strength that Stephen had used to turn a losing battle into a victory all those years ago? Melinda dropped her wine glass and took her legs off the table. When Garrett returned to the family, he had been seriously injured. He told them that Stephen had killed his subordinate, Jacob, with only one flick of his wrist. The family concluded that Stephen's martial arts strength had reached a higher level than they'd anticipated. The Addams family valued strength above everything else, regardless of the members' statuses in the family or how many rules they had broken. As long as they were able to reach a level of strength that would be deemed satisfactory by the family, they would be held in high regard. Despite everything that had happened in the past, it wasn't impossible for Stephen to become the successor. This was precisely the reason why the Addams family had sent Melinda after Stephen. They wanted her to test his true strength. After taking care of Alaric, Stephen turned to Melinda. "It's your turn." Melinda panicked a little as Stephen walked up to her. A murderous glint flashed in his eyes. She hadn't expected him to have become this strong. He'd killed Alaric in one move. Melinda's brain was working overdrive as she tried to come up with a reasonable excuse to get out of this. She stood up and clapped. "Stephen, congratulations on passing the family's test. I instructed Alaric to attack you under the family's orders." Stephen narrowed his eyes. "What examination?" Good. She'd caught his interest. She had to continue acting. "You should already know that the strength of each member of the family is assessed once a year. The results of the examination determine their position in the family. It doesn't matter how low you ranked previously. As long as you have the strength, you'll hold a higher position in the family and enjoy more privileges. Alaric's strength has reached the AAA ranks, and the family assumed that yours was one tier lower, at least AA rank. But from what I saw just now, I believe your current strength has reached S rank. So I'll be taking you back and reporting this information to the family." Stephen gave Melinda an unimpressed look. "I'll go back, but not now." What a joke. As the Grand Palace Master, why would he care about an inconsequential family like the Addams family?
If he really did return, it certainly wouldn't be as a candidate for the successor position. He would be returning as the Grand Palace Master. But it wasn't the right time for that. He couldn't return now, not like this.
Aunt Melinda, I didn't realize you were such a talented actress. If I didn't know who you were and what kind of person you are, I would have been touched by your so-called sincerity. Unfortunately, I'm no longer the person I used to be. So today, you will meet your end, just like Alaric.
Back then, Melinda had been the most active of the assassins that had been sent after him. She was persistent and unrelenting, chasing him for thousands of miles. Needless to say, he'd suffered a lot because of her. He'd even almost died. Melinda burst out laughing. You want to kill me? It won't be that easy. You may have killed Alaric with one move, but you don't have what it takes to do the same to me. I'm your aunt, and I'm sure you're aware that I reached S rank a long time ago. Melinda reached behind her back and pulled out 2 scimitars. She leapt into the air and raised her weapons, heading straight for Stephen.
Watch out!
Flynn shouted in alarm. Stephen jumped back and avoided Melinda's attack. She pulled her weapons out of the floor and threw a kick. This time, Stephen didn't dodge. He reached out with blinding speed and grabbed her ankle. With a crack, the sound of shattering bones echoed in the room. Melinda cried out and dropped to the floor. Her weapons lay next to her. Stephen looked down at her in disappointment.
A warrior with an S-rank combat strength? Is this all you've got?
Melinda raised her head in shock. His strength alone was putting him among the SSS ranks. Stephen turned his attention to Lucas, who was cowering in the corner.
Now it's time to take care of you. How do you think we should settle this?
Lucas was scared out of his mind. Even Melinda wasn't a match for Stephen. He knelt in front of him and pleaded.
Mr. Adams, please spare me. I'm willing to give up the Klein Group.
Klein Group? Stephen grinned.
6 years ago, you were a nobody in the Santa Ana's business industry. But because you pledged your allegiance to the Adams family, they supported your endeavors. After I was kicked out of the family, you made your move and took over the business that I established in Santa Ana and changed the name to the Klein Group. You held the city's economic lifeline in your hands, and your net worth soared.
You're the previous owner? Lucas exclaimed. Before Stephen was abandoned by the Adams family, they had 2 top talents. Stephen was one of them, and the other was his older brother. They were both competent and evenly matched, and so the family sent them out to test their abilities. They would both make a place for themselves outside of the family without their support. Whoever achieved the most would become the favored successor. Stephen went to Santa Ana and relied on his outstanding business sense to establish his own company. In the span of 1 short year, his business became one of the leading enterprises in the city, ranking first in terms of GDP. His reputation spread far and wide. The Adams family was no exception. The news reached Washington, D.C., but just as Stephen was at his peak, a few words from a stranger ruined his life and got him kicked out of the family. Afterward, Lucas oversaw the merger and acquisition of Stephen's business with his own and changed the name to Klein Group. It followed the laws, and the public didn't suspect anything. They only regarded Lucas as a rising upstart. Recently, through an investigation conducted by the palace, Stephen discovered that the Adams family was behind the merger. They helped Lucas persecute the higher-ups, who were still loyal to the previous owner and took control of the company.
Yes, 6 years ago, I lost something of mine in this city. And now, I'll be taking it back,
Stephen said. Lucas surrendered immediately.
I'll return the company to you. You're the owner of Klein Group, and you may change the name as you wish.
With the assistance of his legal advisor, it didn't take long for Lucas to fill out and submit the paperwork necessary for a change of ownership in the company. Despite all else, Lucas was Santa Ana's economic lifeline, so it came as no surprise that he was resourceful. While it would typically take around 10 days to half a month to complete these procedures, Lucas only needed around 10 minutes.
From this moment onwards, the Klein Group that controlled Santa Ana's economy would become Stevens, who was the rightful owner.
Lucas, don't misunderstand, Stevens said. Even though Klein Group is worth tens of billions, to me, it's only pocket money. I'm just taking back what belongs to me. After I leave, you can contact Jack Stein if you need anything. Are you referring to Jack Stein, one of the richest people on the East Coast? Is there another Jack Stein as famous as he is? Mr. Adams, may I ask how you know him? He's one of my subordinates.
Stevens' indifferent reply left Lucas at a loss for words. Jack Stein possessed wealth that was worth hundreds of billions, and he was even considered a distinguished guest to someone with authority at the national level. But he was only a subordinate to Stephen. But that would mean that Stephen was actually... Lucas scrapped the thought. He was not in a position to know his identity. When Lucas merged his own company with Stevens, he didn't do anything illegal. The most he ever did was order his employees around. So Stephen decided to leave him be. To be able to integrate the Klein Group into Santa Ana's economy and emerge as a top enterprise in the city while maintaining its ranking for so many years, Lucas could be considered a prodigy in the business industry. It wasn't convenient for Stephen to show his face, so he went to find one of the four great generals, Dennis Lucero, to replace Lucas as the CEO and carry out the operations of the Klein Group. As someone who lived his life on the battlefield, Dennis said he couldn't do it.
Mr. Adams, I would gladly accept if you wanted me to fight, but I don't have a talent for running a company.
Stephen patted Dennis on the shoulder.
You just need to play the part. I'll be the one making the decisions. Don't worry about the business side of things.
Okay, if you say so, I'll do my best, Dennis said.
The next day, Lucas and Dennis, on behalf of Stephen, held a press conference and officially announced that Lucas would be resigning from his position, and Dennis Lucero would become the new CEO of Klein Group. Lucas was a bundle of nerves, and he had only relaxed after the press conference was over. Last night, he'd contacted Jack because he wanted to verify Stephen's words. Jack had told him that half of the world's wealth and influence belonged to Stephen. That was all Lucas needed to confirm his identity. The palace was a legendary organization, and Stephen was the Grand Palace Master. The sudden news of Klein Group's acquisition by Dennis Lucero stirred up the masses. The city wondered who this mysterious Mr. Lucero was. He had seemingly appeared out of thin air and taken control of Santa Ana's economy. After the press conference, Stephen and Dennis headed to the CEO's office at the Klein Group. Stephen sat on the couch and held up a list of the company's upper management staff. Max, director of the technology department. Brendan, department head. Joyce, director of the sales department. Sam, logistics director. These names were familiar. I didn't expect the talents I scouted back then would become the Klein Group's higher-ups. Looks like Lucas is quite capable. He was the richest man in Santa Ana for a reason. Stephen continued to flip through the list, but he didn't see the names of the core personnel of his company back then. People like Noah and Richard, who were the backbone of the technology department of his company back then, seemed to have disappeared without a trace. Dennis was sitting behind the CEO's desk in the same chair that Lucas had sat in just yesterday. Being a CEO wasn't his forte.
Mr. Adams, what are you planning to do?
Leave the staff alone for now. I'll go look for Noah, Richard, and the others. By the way, we have a meeting with the upper management 3 days from now. Dennis, you're the CEO, so you should go meet with your employees.
Trigger warning. The following episode contains descriptions of suicide which some listeners may find disturbing. It is intended for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Mom, Kim, I'm back,
Stephen called out as he opened the door to Riverview Villa.
I have good news. Lucas retired, and the Klein Group has a new CEO. We don't have to worry about him from now on.
Kim and Natalie looked at him from the living room. The TV was on, and the Klein's Group's press conference was being aired.
We already know that. Natalie said, gesturing to the TV. I don't know what you do out there all day long. If it weren't for Dennis Lucero, who knows what could have happened to us? I went out to solve the problem. Oh, please, don't tell me you were the one who told Dennis to purchase the Klein Group. Yeah, I asked Dennis to become the new CEO. Natalie turned her attention back to the TV. Forget it. You're not capable of doing something like that. Stephen didn't argue with her. In any case, there were no more outside distractions. Kim could focus on Eastern Sea Group's 5-star hotel project in peace. Kim didn't show it, but she was curious about Dennis. She had a feeling that he and Stephen were acquainted. Kim, I have a few friends in Santa Ana who I haven't seen in a while, Stephen said. I have nothing to do in the afternoon, so I'm planning on heading over and hanging out with them. Okay, have fun. Stephen left the house and decided to look for Noah first. Even though both Richard and Noah worked in the technology department 6 years ago, he could only find Noah using the Klein Group's resources. He couldn't find any information on Richard. In the past, Noah's position in the company was only second to Richard's. But in the present, Noah was in dire need of money. He ran a grocery store in one of the poorer neighborhoods in Santa Ana, and business was not going well. Stephen couldn't figure it out. Back then, Noah had received an annual salary of several million. Even if he resigned from the company, he should have still had quite a bit of savings. And so, Stephen decided to look into it himself. When he got out of the cab, he saw Noah sitting in front of the grocery store's counter. 6 years ago, Noah had been in the prime of his youth and had a positive outlook on the future. But there was no trace of that optimism now. Noah was in his 40s. His hair was gray, and his face was haggard. Stephen almost didn't recognize him at first glance. Noah? He called out. His voice was tinged with uncertainty. Noah turned and recognized him with one look. He was surprised to see him. Mr. Adams, is that you? Noah was thrilled to see his old boss again. He brought out a stool and invited Stephen to take a seat. Stephen sat down and looked around. The wallpaper, furniture, and floorboards were all faded and aged. A woman came out of one of the back rooms. She was wearing heavy makeup and was dressed extravagantly. She seemed out of place in this dusty old grocery store. The woman peered outside. Noah, are you here yet? Noah frowned. Mary, can't you see that Mr. Adams came to visit us? Do you only care about that adulterous man of yours? After some thought, Stephen recognized her. Mary used to be one of his company's employees. At that time, she and Noah had been in a relationship, but she was fired because she kept seducing every man she came across at work using her attractive appearance. After the company let Mary go, Noah was still deeply in love with her, and he ended up marrying her later down the line. Mary looked at Stephen in disdain. Don't be so harsh, Noah. Did you forget? Mr. Adams was the one who tried to break us apart. If it weren't for his bankruptcy back then, would you have been able to marry a beautiful woman like me? Oh, right. I heard that he went to Los Angeles after he went bankrupt and became the son-in-law of the Cassidy family. He freeloads off his wife and fools around every day. So what's the matter, Mr. Adams? Did you come here to complain to Noah? Or maybe you're here to borrow money from us. Noah looked like he was on the verge of losing it. Can't you be polite for once? Mary ignored him. I'm telling you right now, if you came to borrow money, you can forget about it. Noah's assets are with me, and I'm in charge of them. From Mary's haughty attitude and her fancy outfit, Stephen understood why Noah was so short on cash. A Porsche 911 pulled up in front of the grocery store and honked several times. The car door opened, and a man in a suit stepped out. Stephen recognized him. His name was Max, and he used to be one of the lower-ranking employees at his company. But now he was one of the higher-ups of the Klein Group. Max was the director of the technology department. Mary sauntered over to the car with a smile. Max, you're finally here. Where are we going today?
Max pretended like he didn't see Noah and brazenly wrapped his arm around Mary's shoulder.
Why don't we spend time together in bed?
Mary leaned into his chest. You're so dirty-minded. Noah could only helplessly watch the two of them flirt right in front of him. Stephen stood up.
Max, don't you think you're going too far? Noah is Mary's husband. Why are you acting like he doesn't exist and flirting with her in front of so many people?
Max finally noticed Stephen's presence.
Mr. Adams, it's been years since we last saw each other. How have you been?
His tone was polite, but Stephen noticed the underlying ridicule.
Yes, it has been a while, and it seems like your personality is only getting worse as time goes on.
Max laughed and gave Mary a hug.
Personality is worth nothing, and Mary was the one who sought me out. She came to me herself, so why would I refuse? Compared to Noah, she's much more satisfied with me.
Noah lowered his head in shame. There was nothing he could say to defend himself.
Noah, why don't you just get a divorce? Stephen asked.
Mary was amused by his ridiculous suggestion.
Divorce? No way. Besides, he wouldn't dare divorce me. If I leave him, he'll have nothing left.
Noah heaved a sigh.
Mary, what's wrong with you? You already have his money. Why can't you just let him go? Are you doing this on purpose?
Mary wrapped her arm around Max's waist.
Yeah, I'm doing this to torture him.
Max chuckled.
Noah, I'm taking Mary out to eat, and I'll give her the life and happiness that she wants. Since you're not capable of fulfilling your duties as her husband, I'll do it for you. Speaking of which, you should thank me for going out of my way.
Max shifted his gaze to Stephen.
It must be fate that we're all meeting again after all this time. I'm meeting up with Brendan, Joyce, and Sam tonight. Why don't you join us so we can reminisce about the good old days?
Max, Brendan, Joyce, and Sam were all talented people that Stephen had high hopes for. 6 years ago, Stephen had planned training for them to prepare them for a promotion. But before he had the chance to oversee their training and promote them, he was kicked out of the Addams family. It had been 6 years since they'd last gathered. Max had become an entirely different person, and Stephen was curious as to what the others were like.
Okay, I'll be there, he said. King's Hotel, private room 501. See you later.
Max opened the car door for Mary and drove off. When they were on the highway, Mary turned away from the window.
If you let me divorce Noah, we could live together. Not yet. Richard and Noah have the technology that I need. No one else knows where it is. Richard's whereabouts are unknown, and only Noah knows about it now. Without that technology, my position as the director of the technology department is at risk. Also, Dennis took over the Klein Group so suddenly. He has to be an extremely wealthy person to manage such a feat. If I get my hands on that technology and give it to Dennis as a gift, he might give me a promotion as a reward. When I have a firm footing in the company, you'll divorce Noah, and we'll get married. Isn't that a good idea?
Max's flowery words strung Mary along.
You've thought that far ahead? I'm so happy. But Noah does nothing but sigh in front of the store every single day. He's like a dead man. I can't get through to him.
Max focused on the road to hide his smirk.
That's why you have to speed things up.
At the grocery store, Noah sat back down behind the counter.
Mr. Adams, I'm sorry for letting you down. Noah, listen to me. Get a divorce and cut ties with her. I would if I could, but she has all my assets in her hands. If I divorce her, I'll have to live on the streets.
When Noah and Mary were engaged, he loved her so much that he let her write down her name whenever they purchased a car, house, or other valuables. What surprised Stephen the most was that before their marriage, they'd even signed an agreement, which stated that if Noah suggested a divorce, all of his assets would belong to Mary. Whether she had an affair or not didn't matter. He would be penniless if he divorced her. Stephen finally understood why Noah was stuck in this neighborhood and living an aimless life.
It'll be fine. So what if you sign that agreement? As long as I'm here, I won't let you starve to death. I'm back now, and I've even taken back my company. I hope we can work together as we did 6 years ago. I've learned from my mistakes, and this time, I won't let what happened back then happen again.
Noah suddenly looked 10 years younger. His expression was radiant.
Mr. Adams, are you going to make a comeback? I heard a mysterious rich man named Dennis Lucero acquired the Klein Group this morning. Could it be? Yes, that was my handiwork. I want to take back everything I lost in the past. Will you help me?
Noah nodded vigorously.
Of course, Mr. Adams.
This was probably the best news he had heard in the past 6 years.
I've been meaning to ask, do you know how Richard's doing? I wanted to ask him to come back to the company. If he agrees, we three can work together again.
Noah's face fell at the mention of Richard. Stephen's intuition told him that something must have happened that he wasn't aware of.
What's wrong?
Noah sighed.
Fate knows how to make a fool out of a man. After you disappeared 6 years ago, the company didn't have a leader. It was chaotic, and everyone wanted the technology in Richard's possession. On the surface, those people pretended like they wouldn't do anything to him. But one day, Richard showed up at the rooftop of our company's building and jumped. I don't know the details, but according to the news, he ended his life out of guilt. What was he guilty of? They say the people who ran the Klein Group discovered that Richard was embezzling large amounts of public funds and used it to threaten him into handing over the technology, but he chose to end his life instead.
Stephen shook his head.
That's a lie.
He personally kept tabs on his company's accounts. Even if Richard wanted to, it would have been impossible for him to embezzle money without him knowing. Moreover, Richard wasn't that kind of person.
I'll make sure to conduct a thorough investigation into what happened back then, Stephen said. All right. Oh, I almost forgot. Are you really going to attend the gathering tonight with Max? Of course. I personally scouted them back then. Since they're meeting up tonight, I have to go. Are you sure? I have a feeling they're up to no good. Don't worry about it. I'm actually curious as to what they have in store for me.